So let's talk a little bit about food allergies, kind of the what and why with them. This also pertains a bit to even inhalant environmental allergies. There's some of the same tenets here, but then I'll answer some questions toward the end. But in terms of food allergies, of course, this is not going to advance now like it just did. There we go. So objectives, define what is an allergy, define sensitivity, define intolerance. How and why does this happen, and what can we do acutely and long term? This is one of my apricots, so we're going to hope that my tree produces apricots this year, but we'll see. In terms of the definition of allergy, it's a damaging immune response by the body to a specific substance, especially pollen, fur, foods, dust, to which we've become hypersensitive. There are really, when we talk about allergies, we really talk about immunoglobulin E responses. And so there's antibodies produced by our white blood cells that recognize something in particular, whether it be birch, dog fur, somebody who has a shellfish allergy. Our body recognizes that, and then it triggers an immune response. This is called type 1 hypersensitivity. It can be anything from sneezing, itching, rash, runny nose, gut issues, or lip swelling, breathing issues, and anaphylaxis. So that's a true allergy. How do we diagnose true allergies? We're through blood testing, skin prick or patch testing, and then you can also do a food challenge and elimination diet. This is really impertinent when we talk about food sensitivities up next, but certainly these IgE allergies, these are often the ones that we're doing that blood test or we're sending you to the allergist, and people walk around, they know they have an EpiPen, but that is definitely a true allergy. So I just want to make that clear, because when you talk to an allergist about allergy, or you talk to a gastroenterologist about allergy, true allergy is this IgE. When we start to get into food sensitivities and intolerances, those aren't true allergies per se, and there's definitely some variability as to different clinicians' comfort with those terms or those concepts. So what happens when you're exposed to an allergen? Initially, it can be anything from a real minimal, maybe a rash or some itching, to severe, which depends on your antibody response. We'll see this sometimes when the first time somebody gets stung by a bee, they might get a red spot. The next time, all of a sudden, it could be significantly worse, and they could be having breathing issues. And so with a true allergy, we worry about that, and repeat exposures to a true allergen often will cause worsening of responses. When we talk about seasonal allergies, like birch allergies for people, a lot of people with birch allergies will have cross reactivity to maybe stone fruits, and they can have, they can eat different things if it's cooked, or if they take the skin off of things. And oftentimes they will have worse reactions to these during, birch, when the birch pollen's out, than during the middle of winter. So that's not uncommon. When you're exposed to the allergen, your antibodies are trying to protect you, but it ends up being an overexuberant response. And that's what, it produces what we all commonly know as kind of that histamine reaction. When we talk about food sensitivity, you're looking at another immunologic reaction, but it's an IgG response. So it's more of a delayed hypersensitivity, whereas that IgE response is really pretty darn acute. Like, you come in contact with it and you have your allergy symptoms. When it's these food sensitivities, it could be more immediate, but oftentimes it can be delayed hours. Sometimes it can be delayed even days. So this clearly becomes a bit more challenging. When we're dealing about food intolerances, those are not immunologic reactions to food, but that's when sometimes people have lactose issues, have histamine intolerance. People can have salicylate intolerance related to like aspirin. So those are definitely can become a bit more challenging. In terms of diagnosing food sensitivities, uh, generally it's done through blood testing. Some of you have done this like through ALA tests. Or different labs. There's pros and cons associated with this testing in terms of reliability and results being reproducible. And if any of you've done that, we've talked about these issues, but sometimes it can be really helpful to do some of these things if we have symptoms that are causing, you know, a problem, to try to figure that out. So really, like, why does this happen? You know, what are underlying factors that we end up with allergies, or that we end up with food intolerances? You know, a lot of that has to do really with these underlying factors of genetics, barrier permeability, so like gut, skin, environmental toxin exposure, nutritional deficiencies, low stomach acid. That makes a difference because when we can't break down some of these different proteins in stomach acid, you know, and you have a leaky gut, are more things coming through. So that can be definitely an issue as well. Different drugs are going to play a role in stomach acid, as well as leaky gut. Stress will play a role in this. Obesity plays a role in this. Let's see what happened here. Oops, we got to go back. I have a cool video for you if I can figure out how to make it go back. There we go. So they have a little video on leaky gut, and we'll like play, and you can watch the stuff go through. It's not really poop, it's just like protein particles. It kind of looks like poop or something. But you can see how normally stuff's going to stay in your stomach, and then sometimes it gets through your gut if you have a leaky gut, and then it gets right in your bloodstream, and that's where we end up having, you know, immune reactions, and that's how we end up creating immune reactions things. So what can we do to minimize and avoid these things? Healthy diet is clearly helpful. Avoid processed foods, sugar, triggering foods and spices. An app that I've talked to many of you about, Dirty Dozen, which helps us what food should we eat organic, you know, so that we can limit more of these toxic exposures, especially if we're dealing with pesticides, different fertilizers, those kind of things. The other thing to think about limiting toxic exposures is thinking about the things we put on our skin. At one point, the stat was that a baby and in the cord blood, there were 270 environmental different toxins in cord blood. And I would suspect that that's even higher now. So, you know, babies are born with this stuff. And I think people are becoming more aware. Along with the Dirty Dozen app, there's also Skin Deep by the Environmental Working Group. So it actually, you can see like what is in some of these different things, different lotions, shampoos, soaps, household, you know, cleaning goods, those kind of things, to see what it is that we're actually getting, you know, exposing ourselves to. Minimizing stress, so getting adequate sleep. This has been a bit more challenging maybe in the last 5 weeks here. Daily movement and activity. And you know what, like we've talked about this before, surround yourself with happy, healthy people, and that is really helpful. Our goals generally to avoid antibiotics, avoid non-steroidal anti-inflammatories and acid-blocking drugs. Those things were all going to impact our gut. And then maintaining adequate vitamin D, omega-3 fatty acids. Also, you know, thinking about things, and I'll talk about these a little bit more with basically gut repair, you know, just different nutrients that we need, and why it's so important to be eating lots of fruits and vegetables and limiting our processed food to restore our gut barrier, you know, if and when that gets disrupted. let's see. All right, different allergy treatments that people are aware of. Of course, like if you go see an an immunologist or allergist, they talk about a lot of times allergy shots. Slit therapy is sublingual immune therapy, and that can do, sometimes you do a really small dose of something to build your tolerance over time. Most people are aware of antihistamines. That's your Benadryl, Claritin, also leukotriene inhibitors, singular is one of those. Steroids, people often need EpiPens, especially when we're dealing with those IgE allergies, the true allergy. Different nutrients that can be helpful, vitamins A, D, and C. Omega-3 fatty acids are really helpful. Quercetin is really helpful. Quercetin, interestingly, is a mast cell inhibitor and works very much so like singular is a leukotriene inhibitor. And so that actually, when I've talked to those of you I talked to about that, that actually really helps to prevent that whole histamine response, which is pretty nice and has limited adverse effects. What's really important, especially when we're dealing with foods, is ensuring adequate digestion, and so that it's taking time to slow down and eat, really chewing your food well, because that helps increase that stomach acid, which helps us break things down. For some people, if you have lower stomach acid, adding acid. I think a lot of people, especially people that eat meat, know like we add things to, whether you're using lemon juice, lime juice, different things can help tenderize meats. It's kind of that same thing to break down those proteins. We can actually using apple cider vinegar, lemon, lime juices, simple things, those can actually help start the digestive process and break things down. It's the same reason why if you tend to get bloated, sometimes adding those enzymes, digestives, can actually help you better digest foods and you feel a little bit better. And, really for those people that have gone down this road to some extent, like avoiding foods that are problematic. I mean, certainly there are people that know they can't tolerate dairy and they end up with dairy at some point, and they pay the price, really. And when you're dealing with intolerances, you're really more so paying a price, and it's not generally a life or death. It's a relative comfort or discomfort. So one of the key things I think to look at is like thinking about repairing our gut barrier. And back in my initial training with Institute for Functional Medicine, it was the 4 R's, and now we've added a 5th, which is rebalancing, and you'll understand the importance of that. But when we're really talking about repairing gut, number 1 is removing. We got to eliminate allergens and intolerances. And this is, if I've worked with any of you on this, this is when we're using more of an anti-inflammatory diet, or we may be using an elimination diet to eliminate potential things. The next step then is to replace any digestive secretions, enzymes, hydrochloric or bile acids that we need to help with digestion. Once we get things removed, we start replacing things, we also need to re-inoculate. So we want to add in good bacteria. A lot of you guys have heard of bifidobacteria, lactobacillus. Those things are super important. Adding in fiber as our prebiotics to help with basically feeding the good bacteria. So that's super important. Those kind of things, and having this good microbiome really supports our immune system, because 70% of our immune system is in our gut. So if we have poor gut health, we are at risk for more infections, viral infections, any other infection. In terms of repairing the gut lining, this is when we're using things like zinc, glutamine, essential fatty acids, antioxidants, different amino acids. And some of you, like, this is where bone broth can be really helpful in terms of providing good nutrients to heal your gut. We've used a variety of different products here with, if I've worked with you on these things that have, zinc and glutamine and maybe slippery elm, marshmallow root, different things that will help heal your gut. And so that's super important. But once we remove things, we start to replace what's missing, we re-inoculate with good bacteria, and we work on repairing. The key that we have to go to, and this is what got, has been added, and we realize it's most important, is rebalancing. Rebalance those lifestyle factors, sleep, stress, activity. Maybe it's eliminating processed foods and sugar and those kind of things. But what are the things that got us in trouble in the first place, and how can we rebalance? So that's really the key of rebalancing our lifestyle, because we don't, it's suboptimal to go through all these 4 steps and feel great, and a month later you feel crummy again. So really it's during this whole time, and these aren't, stepwise, step 1, step 2, step 3. A lot of these things, we're working on things at the same time. And I think that probably is obvious when you think about the different things that we're working on. So, and, we're certainly working on rebalancing things at the same time we're removing things or replacing things. And that's part of our process of just kind of the discovery of what's going on and why is it happening. So in summary, and I did a pretty good job, I think, trying to keep it a little bit short. We talked about food allergies, sensitivities, intolerances. Why does it happen? How to treat it? How can we, prevent it? Really, mostly with lifestyle. And so that's kind of the quick and dirty on food allergies. So I'll stop that. Let's see what we. That's awesome. Thanks. I'm trying to get better. I changed my level of the camera on my desk so that I feel like after watching the last Zoom, I realized how much I feel like I'm looking down and not looking at you. So I'm learning. Red wine headaches, allergy or intolerance. You know what? A couple of things. Probably sulfites or tannins. And the other thing I would think about, potentially some dehydration, but I think it's probably sulfites and tannins, and probably more in intolerance than maybe allergy. But certainly some people have allergies, and I know a lot of people will just get a headache if they drink red wine. Yeah, so there. I don't know if you guys have seen, and I'll have to look on the website if we still have a link on there, but there are, if people are interested in wine that I would say is healthier, if you want to use that term, dry farm wines. And they source out of California, I think, and they basically curate wines from all over the world, and they're low sugar, they're low alcohol, and so they're generally 11-12% alcohol. They're low sugar. They don't have any pesticides, so they're basically organic. Often they're biodynamic, so they don't have added yeast inoculum in them, and so it tends for a lot of people to be really tolerable. But I'll make sure if somebody's interested in dry farm wines, let me know. Often good to get a few of you together to order dry farm wines, because if you order 2 cases at a time, or at least they've done this in the past with me, they will forego the shipping. So that can be really helpful. Oh yeah, somebody could ask, one point that you guys can all see is trying white wine to see if it gives you the same issues. Jerusalem artichokes. I think if I would try different, if sometimes if things give us gas and bloating, like you think about beans, peas, lentils for people, basic sulfur containing different vegetables, you know, basically our brassica family, which is super helpful for you and really provides us a lot of necessary nutrients. But I would tinker with different cooking options. Certainly we know with beans, pre-soaking, that kind of stuff can make a difference. So I would tinker a bit with cooking options, but also, you know, sometimes we can have the, you know, the healthiest foods, you know, garlic, turmeric. Those, we know those are great things for us to eat, but some people just flat out don't tolerate them. And if you don't, you don't, you know. So I would say don't kill yourself trying to eat. I mean, if something really, really makes you sick, you know, like, it's okay not to eat something. We can find other things to eat. Question, KBMO testing. So I didn't go into all the different testing, and in it, if people are interested in that, I could do a whole nother talk on different testing. So KBMO does, they do some IgG testing, but they also do another component of testing called mediator release, so MRT testing. And so that basically looks at white cells, and they basically kind of look at, under a microscope, do the white cells basically react to different foods? So I've used KBMO. Some of you realize I've used that a handful of times, and I tend to use it more when we've tried other things and we're just trying to figure out what could it possibly be that could be an issue. And sometimes for people who have do have issues where, certainly if you in the past have had an IgG test and all a tests done, or Doctor's Data does one, there's lots of companies that do them. If you've had one and you have all these reactions, I would say really what you have is you have leaky gut. So sometimes if I know somebody's got a leaky gut, and I think that we need to sometimes just, I really think that we need to work on gut health first. Because if I get a list, or I'm going to predict, you know, thinking like, oh my gosh, you're going to react to everything, to me that's a waste of $200 of doing a test if I can already guess that you're going to react to everything. And so really when I think about doing this kind of testing, and I know I've talked to a lot of you about it, when I'm thinking about this testing, I'm thinking about it, number one, we've tried multiple things and we're not able to get to the source and figure out what is causing the problem. So sometimes I think that is really helpful then to utilize this sort of testing. The other person that I will use the test for is when I talk to somebody and you're resistant to changing your diet, or I get kind of a cross-eyed look about like, well, why, I can't not have dairy, I can't avoid sugar, these kind of things. And so sometimes it's worthwhile then to get it on a piece of paper, and then it can help with dietary change. So those are kind of the times that I use this, and then a variety of the different tests that I use will kind of depend on the situation. I will tell you, I've done all of these tests on myself, most all of these tests. And I have seen, I've been like reactive to like all kinds of crazy things over time. And I've retested myself 6 months later, having eliminated something completely for 6 months, and find I still react to something, or I react to something new that I hadn't been eating at all. And so that's the question always. And I get, that's why these this conversation will get often poo-pooed, if you will, when you start to talk to an allergist or an immunologist or a gastroenterologist. Like a lot of times people just say it doesn't matter, it doesn't count. And it does. I mean, I see enough things and I hear enough people that have issues with food intolerances that It does. And I would say if somebody's telling you that you don't know what you're talking about, like, I would reply to them that they're not in your body and So if if you have these, people do have different tolerance levels to different things. So, so there was the Dirty Dozen app. Let me tell you what it is because I've got it. It is actually, it is called Healthy Living, powered by Skin Deep is one of them. So if you go to Environmental Working Group, where's my Dirty Dozen app? I have one of those somewhere too. You'd think I'd know where it was because I pull it out all the time. I think it's called, sorry, I'm looking at my phone so I can find it. Dirty Dozen is the app, is what I have as the app. So I think you can find it in the app store that way. Another one is called Think Dirty, and that has a lot of different cosmetic products and stuff in it as well. What else do we got? Yeah, there's Dirty Dozen and Clean 15. Can hormonal changes play into allergies? Yeah, they can. And I think it doesn't get discussed very often, but I would say that yes, it does. I had just in observation over 20 plus years, especially when I've noticed it more so with people is I think of like skin things and eczema, dyshydrotic eczema. I've just through observation had watched people and I had people tell me, like at different times their skin is more sensitive and it can play in with your hormones. So cyclically, if women are, still cycling, and I think that there's changes through menopause in the same sense. So we do see that. I can't explain it super well as to why that is, but I definitely would not ever poo-poo anybody saying that because it's definitely something that I have had an observation of. Question about GMO. So yeah, I didn't really specifically talk about genetically modified, but when we are talking, those are definitely, we don't know what we're always dealing with when we're genetically modifying things. So that's definitely an issue. Corn and soy, yeah, I would stay away from GMO sources. And yeah, I think you guys can see some of this stuff in our chat. Endocrine disruptors are an issue, and those would be xenoestrogens and some of our BPA, which is in bisphenol A. That was the concern for a long time with plastic water bottles and in plastics, but also lining cans, just common food cans and soup cans in the grocery store. One issue, we see all these things that are BPA free now, but what has actually been introduced is now it's BPS. So I'm sure in like 2 more years, we'll see now it's BPA and BPS free. So to beat that to the chase, like pick up like some sort of steel-ish, bottles. That's what I would say. Certainly, for those of you that are really active, I don't have a steel bike water bottle at this point. And so BPA free is what we've got right now. Lots of comments here about like nail polish and other personal care products and sleep. I can't understate how important sleep is. I think about how sleep impacts the food choices that you will make. It will obviously it impacts our interactions with folks on a daily basis, our energy levels, and chronic poor sleep is going to impact your gut health. It impacts everything. So yeah, I would definitely expect that to be part of an issue. And there's a I'll copy this stuff out of the chat, but apparently there's a website, Essential Organic. I'll check that out and find a link for everybody. So it is, let's see if anybody else have any other questions? Otherwise, we'll wrap this up and I'll clean it up, if you will, and get it posted for you guys. So hopefully people are able to find each of these talks. I'm posting it to the web page, but I'm putting it on the Now Health YouTube page. And maybe the first two I just did audio. I may be able to go back and actually put video up of both of those, because I'm learning now when I am talking and I'm recording, it's not getting, unless I share my screen, it's not getting the things on my screen. And I've been really hyper acute about making sure that I don't want to post people's names somewhere on the web. So it appears the videos are showing me, or it's showing the screen if I screen share. So that seems helpful. And you know, I would appreciate if you guys, like, other ideas that you want to hear about, want me to talk about, you know, shoot us a message. Send an email to nowhealthpalmer@gmail.com. Gina will get it to me. If people got that form of ideas and questions, fill that out and send it in to us. That's super helpful, because I want to be able to, I want to keep moving this forward and talk about different things. And certainly we can do short talks on lots of topics. And I think it's important to update people on COVID right now, but I also don't want to spend all our time talking about COVID, because it's here. And it's kind of, you know, I would encourage everybody, you know, it's rainy today here, but get out and go for a walk. And, you know, it's okay to try to stay apprised of what's happening in the world and current news, but, you know, we need to be looking at things beyond. There's a lot of things happening that are non-COVID. And I think a lot of times people are really getting wrapped up. There's so many podcasts right now that you can hear all those things, but, you know, take some time to, like, listen to something non-COVID, or something that's just more uplifting or fun. Listen to a book, or, you know, something to make you laugh, and really take some time each day to unplug, because I think with people feeling more stuck in their houses, I think we're really plugged in, and certainly to be plugged in and communicating with our families and our friends is really important, but some of the other stuff, like, we got to let go of it at times too. So if that's if that's all, you guys have a great day. I'll get this reposted. Have a good weekend, and we will chat again. I'll stick with this same time again next week. So let's see how that works for people. Okay. All right. Everybody have an awesome weekend, and I hope everybody's had an awesome Earth Day. Okay. Bye, guys.